you for your introduction, this panel. And I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to start with understanding the strategies which kind of led to the hypergrowth that you've seen with your organizations. So talk to me about it, share experiences with the team. Everybody is curious in terms of what were your strategies there? How did you come across certain hurdles? And how do you kind of create that winning strategy for your teams? I'll start from the right-hand corner. Praz, you can probably start there.
I think super interesting topic, right? When it comes to hypergrowth, you guys will see a lot of different approaches to achieve and to maintain hypergrowth. It's very different from organization to organization. But what I would like to focus on more is really on how do you prepare your organization for hypergrowth, right? What matters the most is that when we're building products, it's sort of like running a marathon. You're not only building products, hopefully for a few years, you're building a future-proof product that is scalable and sustainable. So when it comes to hypergrowth, one of the strategy that I would like to share about is really preparing and falling in love with the problem. Even before you start building products, you gotta set the playground. So the analogy is one of the most notorious sport when it comes to preparation is F1 racing, right? The drivers are training for years, and the whole pit stop team needs to train for a few years as well, because each fraction of a second matters, how long you're in the pit stop for. But even before they start racing, it's very important when it comes to preparation and in product development. What we did in Moladin was setting up the stage. So there are various ways of setting up the stage, but what we use is a technique called the flywheel loop. Setting up what it means to grow your product and what it takes to grow your product like a flywheel loop, which is like the infinity sign. So in Moladin, the first flywheel loop that we came up with was coincidentally acquisition and retention flywheel loop. So what does it take for an agent to download Moladin app? What is the value prop? How do you acquire the agents? Once you acquire the agents, how do you convert them to transacting agents, right? How do you convert them to start transacting in your platform and realizing the value of your platform? What is the aha moment? Once you have the aha moment, how do you make sure that these agents can be hooked to your product and habitually will depend on your product and eventually become your super users, which in turn, hopefully, will feed back into the acquisition loop to create that virality, that brand ambassador, that word of mouth effect to acquire more agents. It looks simple, but setting up this stage and understanding what is the complete loop for you to activate your users, to retain your users, and finally to convert your users into super users, I think setting up that stage is extremely important for hypergrowth.
Perfect. I think that's super relevant and for a lot of us as well in terms of how we described about these loops, flywheels, and how this is relevant for each of our industries as well. I'll move on to Aditya, talk about your experiences.
Yeah. I mean, there are enough frameworks available on the internet, right? But I would keep it simple from a story point of view. I mean, we all had Cisco WebEx, right? But we started all using Zoom. I think what Zoom solved was making the customer experience really simple, the UI really simple, right? So I always focus on my customer journey in terms of how I can make it simple for the user. While we all use Slack, now Slack solved the collaboration problem, ensuring that people feel as a team. So it was not that chatting tools were not available before, right? Competition will always be there. What becomes more important is what is the exact problem? Zoom solved the customer experience, customer journey, UI problem, while Slack solved the sense of connection problem, the sense of being, right? So I would always focus on the customer need. Sometimes product folks focus too much on the solution and very less on the problem. I love to focus, like if you give me 10 days, I would like focus just 5 days on understanding the problem better, right? Rather than jumping to the solution. The second part I look is for hyper growth, right? We always take super massive problem where everybody has taken it as granted, and we believe that's how life is. So when you take a problem which is very massive, where the consumer has taken it for granted, the ability to delight or wow the customer is super easy because they don't expect anything, right? So whenever you give something, the customer tends to accept it quite well. The third thing is always look if are you the first person solving this problem or somebody has solved it before. If the problem is solved by someone before, you just have to learn what not to do because you probably know what to do. And if a problem is unsolved, yeah, I mean, any PM loves to solve that problem, right? When no one has solved. But this bucketization is, there is a PM alter ego where I'm like, oh, I'm going to make the best product. Yeah, somebody is smart enough to do it. You just figure out what you should not do. The other problem is take inspiration from other industries. I'm a fintech, right? But e-commerce has solved checkout really well. If I need checkout on my fintech platform, it's not like I have to think very differently. So taking inspiration from other industries who have solved a particular problem might not be relevant to your domain, but the problem is the problem, right? So over-engineering, over-solutionizing something doesn't add value. So these 3 to 4 things, usually very basics, tend to, in my past, given solid results. As we define hypergrowth, by the book, it should be 40% YOY, right? Achieving 40% through these techniques is not that difficult, right? And the last one, to ensure you have a habit to do this every quarter. You'll figure out that so much things you have done wrong because we're all humans. We tend to think in the moment what we have done is the right thing. So always better to keep looking back, auditing your journeys, customer journeys, and optimizing them. So yeah, those things.
Yeah, I think there's a common theme emerging as well. If you'd see problem, focusing on the problem, look at the solutions available, look at what all others are doing. So yeah, let's see if this continues. Over to you, Wow, and your experiences.
Yeah, I think Pras and Adia have good strategy. I just want to add, like for O2O service, online to offline service, what I see is that I may be wrong, but Vietnamese customer share few similar traits to Indonesia customer, which is like they want more selection and like convenient. Yeah, because you see, like nowadays, like you can order food, book ticket, go to work, or taking care of your children, your pet, just using an app. Yeah. So there also a term in China right now. A lot of companies are focusing on right now is ultra convenient. So I think in the end, like the user, the customer is demanding more. They want something like they want more diversity, they want more selection, and they want to be more convenient. So for us, like for our strategy for growth is that we offer a wide range of service and a new product line. Like yeah, of course in logistic catalog, but we see that when we can offer more services to our customer, then we can target to different needs of different segment of user, and then they will retain with us more. Yeah, I think so.
I think what I hear is a lot of hyper segmentation, a lot of personalization for consumers. Give them exactly what you're looking at, understand your customers well, and that's for the theme I kind of understand. Over to you now. Sorry.
So Abhijit, I'll start with the contrarian view here by saying that majority of companies who experience hypergrowth don't really plan for it. So they're trying to scale, they're trying to find that product market fit, and something clicks, and suddenly they're in a hypergrowth phase, and they don't really know what to do, right? Because that's why you constantly hear where companies are scaling well, but the systems are not keeping up, right? Because they didn't really plan for it. But having said that, there are definitely strategies, and I think I do agree with what Aditya and Praz were also saying, right? On how, as a company, you can ensure that you reach that. And something that have worked for me is, number one is thinking from first principles. Always be very sure of what is that job that user is trying to do on your platform, right? Why is that user really coming to your platform, and understand that problem instead of being fixated on the solution you have, because your solution might not be solving the problem that the user has. And like when I was in GoPay, this is something which we used where we had a product offering which wasn't doing great. And we really dissected it to understand, why is that? What are we doing wrong? And we kind of revamped that, removed the friction that the user was facing, thought of it differently. And we really saw a growth that, we started seeing double-digit growth after we had enhanced that. So that's one thing which I think really helps. For when you talk about hypergrowth, we all talk about, product innovation. That's table stakes, that if you don't have an innovative product, you definitely cannot, achieve that hypergrowth. But what I have seen a lot of times people missing out on is product distribution, right? Where a lot of product leaders will say that, a good product should sell itself. But I haven't seen that really happening, right? You could have the best product out there in the market, but if the people don't know about it, people don't know about the value that your product offers, they're not going to use it. So that's where product distribution really helps. And we did this in Flip as well, where after we saw that initial product market fit through, word of mouth in the innovators, to reach out to the early adopters, to the early majority, we were able to, market our offerings very well. More people were aware about it. So that was without doing a lot of product enhancement, but just making everyone aware that this solution exists. And that really saw growth. And the final thing, you can call it a strategy or you can call it a philosophy, but it's about focus. Your team cannot scale your product if it's not focused, right? If it's too diluted. And that's where, you need to say no when you can't do something, right? I've done that countless times, have been labeled the no guy. But yeah, you got to do that so that your team is focused on the core objectives for you. Thank you.
No, I can't disagree with any of what he said. There are so many biases that kind of come into us when we kind of designing for something. We transfix ourselves on a particular solution and try to confirm that through various experimentations and say, oh, this is the right solution. Breaking that through first principles, going back to basics, and then kind of saying, maybe there are alternate solutions. And that is what we got to focus on as well. Thank you. Thank you. This was great to understand your perspective into your industries, how you kind of gone through that. For next one, I'm going to have specific questions from what we've kind of understood of your, that's the kind of work that you've done. So I'm going to start with you, Aditya. And what I wanted to understand from you is, building for hypergrowth is not a one-man job, right? You need a great team working for you. So when you identifying this team for yourself, are there specific characteristics, properties that you're looking at in people, or for that matter, how are you designing your team around yourself for that?
Great question, right? So I have a backstory for this, right, through my experience. Back in 2020, Coinworks was around 600,000 users. Today, we are 1.7 million users. By this year, we'll just double that also. So that's like 3x and 2x top of that growth. What I've learned through my previous startup experiences, which I spoke about, is you build teams in phases. And every stage has a very different need as a startup, as a business. And the best part is you never know when you're in hypergrowth. You only realize, when you keep looking at the number and you're like, oh, we are scaling 2x, 3x. So for me, at an early stage, when it's just the founder, there is a vision. The product manager, I would try to have, or let's say Coinworks has 10 products, multiple products, and the product is not very mature, it's an idea. I would hire PMs which are super focused on on-time delivery. I would not focus much on how good they are in product thinking, design thinking as much, because I'm in full control of, the founder usually does not lose control until the product market fit is achieved before the funding runway ends, probably, yeah. The founder has to ensure product market fit before the runway ends. So that time, it's very natural for the PM to not get control of the roadmap. It's more about, they're like mercenaries and we have to deliver on time and as something which you have been seeing or the vision is painted, right? That's very natural. At this stage, the PMs which we hire, which are very strong in project management phase, they usually go two sides. either they scale up as good PMs and they stay with you, and either they just cannot and they leave you and they join at some other early stage to again do the 0 to 1 journey. Yeah. If I go to the second step, the middle stage, right now, the product market fit is decently, we know what we want. You suddenly start hearing things like there is an engineering team, there is a marketing team, performance marketing team. How am I going to do? This is my roadmap. So, at this stage, it's more about the biggest qualities I look in the product manager is stakeholder management. How good are they in communication? Because keeping all of these teams aligned to the vision is more like solving information asymmetry, right? Like they're gap solvers. This is why we are doing something. This is why we should do it. And we all move in that direction. At this stage, I think I would typically hire people who have been there, done that, right? That's kind of easier for me because I don't have to go through again the same journey, but been there, done that is great. And second the second character here is very important, which are excellence, ownership, stakeholder management, and communication skills. It's priceless in my industry, yeah? That you say something and the other person exactly understands it, rather than they don't have their own version of understanding it. If, let's say we have done all of this, we move to the third stage, which is more of a late stage, a growth stage company setup. By this time, the feature roadmap is just not a list of items. It's actually, there's a strategy in place. We know why we are doing it. The product market fit expansion is into play. Metrics change. I think here, I practice two different things, and this has been a tremendous journey as we have scaled, right, from 15 PMs to now a 40 big team. It's the concept of decision boxes or decision matrices. It's very important that at each level, I break up those decision-making processes. Let's say that a PM can take a decision up to $5,000 US. Okay, whether it is about buying something, whether it's about customer experience, or whether about, making something happen, right? That's very important where people feel empowered. Like, big part of my day tries to go in killing the top-down culture, right? You want to build an autonomous team where people have enough entitlement, they're empowered enough to make decisions. The second important part here at this stage is the concept of the shared brain. I cannot be available everywhere, right? So, there has to be a vision and objectives which ties everyone with a common shared brain so that decision-making is again not blocked. If you come to think of it, whatever I have said right now, it tends to be in the same founder position. You are not on the ground. You tend to lose visibility of how decisions are being made, etc., right? So I see that my team is my product now. Their efficiency, their churn, their optimization, how are they dealing with their challenges? So you kind of go in the phase where your team is your product and you want to optimize it constantly every day. And that kind of delivers the results on its own because you're no longer focused on the output, but on the outcome. So I would strongly encourage people to break your startup or wherever we are into these three buckets, if not more, and then understand who to hire. Because if you hire a super matured PM in the first bucket, they're bound to fail, right? Because there is a mismatch of ideas between the founder and this matured PM. The founder is going to stay, right? Obviously. And the other guy is not going to feel very comfortable about his ideas being not accepted. So a lot of people issues tend to be naturally solved if we know who not to hire compared to who to hire.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with this. And this mismatch typically leads to friction in the team and is not scalable at all. You may have hired, as they just mentioned, a super smart PM, very senior PM in early stages, and he would want his ideas, or she would want their ideas to be executed, right? It does not happen because founder has that one core problem to solve. They're looking for new problems to solve at that point in time. If you're not solving that well, you're diversifying the problems at very early stage. So this is super relevant. Identify the right match at the right stage, and that'll be the person you want to hire. Perfect, thank you. I'll move on to Saurabh. Saurabh, my question to you would be, we talk about building solutions. We continue to build more and more solutions, and we kind of identify new problems every day. But at heart, what we're solving for is customer, right? How do you ensure that every solution that you're building has customer right in the center, and you're not kind of losing focus on that?
Good question. I'll divide it into two parts, right? So the first part is around getting reliable insights. The reliable word is the key there, right? Because there are many channels to get insights from consumer. You can get insights from your consumer success team. You can get insights if you have an app from Play Store, App Store. You can get feedback from user interviews. You can get feedback from internal testing. So there are many channels to get feedback about what users really want, how they feel about your product. But the key is to channel all of this feedback through a common funnel so that you generate actionable insights out of this, right? And you make that available for your team to consume so that they can make lovable products which solve problems for users. And this is where I've really partnered and also invested a lot in research and insight teams. And research is just not about doing surveys. Research is about getting insights which can be acted upon. And I'm actually surprised. I've spoken to so many product leaders and product managers across so many consumer internet companies, and I've seen that this is one of the most under-invested function within the product teams, where they are not sufficiently investing in research. And that's where I think having done that, I've been able to actually make sure what do users feel about our products, and how do we action their feedback into further iterations about our product. So that's the first part. And the second part is, it's one word answer, it's platformization. Platformization is not just about making it easy for you to scale your product and technology, right? Platformization is also about offering a consistent experience to your users. And I drive an analogy from war strategies, right? Where in war you have a holding core whose job is to penetrate enemy territory quickly, right? And then you have a holding core whose job is to retain that that territory which was captured. The same works within product organizations. You have service teams and you have platform teams, where platform teams are laying the foundations, which makes it very easy for the service teams to build use cases very quickly on that and offer that consistent experience to users. So users don't need to learn something new on how to use your products every time you are building something new, right? For example, if you have 10 different services that you offer, and you have an experience around applying promotions, now that needs to be consistent across the different products, right? It can't be that users needs to unlearn and learn something new every time they are trying to take that particular action. So I would say these two have been some of the things which I have really employed in my past experience and have worked well for me.
No, brilliant. And in fact, for me, it ties back to your original point as well, that, continue focusing on first principles and try to identify what is that core problem and continue solving for that itself. I'll very quickly move on to you, Bhavan. A very basic but very profound question for me. It's how do you continue innovating, right? Because you get into these loops wherein you go deep into solving some problem and which may not be even of value. How do you even ensure that the innovation is continuous?
Yeah, so I think innovation is in our DNA. Yeah, we really take innovation seriously, and you also want to build that culture to everyone in the company. Like we encourage our employee to do like little innovation as a hobby. Like everyone can do innovation within their work and also their team, even from like engineering team to operation, marketing, even like HR and finance team. Yeah. So for every like 6 months, we normally like evaluate like a potential project in our company, and then we promote the team who is in charge of that innovation to scale up it. Yeah. So and we take it very serious. Yeah. So you can like form a team. You can like request for a resource, and you will also have your own P&L if it's a new product line or a new service. Yeah. So I think like that will help to encourage them to get more idea and to advance ourselves every day. And also like, but interesting that I see that the most pay up innovation project usually come from team that like try to step up their game in the same service. Yeah, that's the myth that when everybody talk about like innovation, they normally think about like doing a brand new thing. Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's true, especially for founder who are building a new startup. But I think for mature like business, yeah, it's not always good to do a brand new thing. You can take whatever is already on the market and do it better than your competitor. Yeah. So yeah, for example, like back into like many years ago in Indonesia, you can like order grocery online, and you can use GoMart and GrabMart, and your grocery item will be delivered into your door within 1 to 2 hours. But today we also have Astro. Yeah, you see. Right now, using Astro, you can have like your grocery. You can use the grocery 50 minutes grocery delivery that service. Yeah. So yeah, I know it's a different business model. Yeah, but let's take a task aside their business structure, their operation activity, and also their motivation. Yeah, but in the eye of the customer, it's also the same grocery shopping experience, but better. You see. So I think that that's what all the companies should focusing on. Yeah, try to step up their game and try to understand the customer need, try to fix the competitor problem, and provide a better service for your customer. It's also called like innovation.
No, I truly believe what you just said. Innovations can be very small innovations, but lie in deep trenches inside the organization. If you have your teams motivated enough to bring those insights back to you, that's your biggest source. You go out hunting for ideas outside. Your team members who worked with various customers know the problems probably even better. So give them that autonomy to kind of build or give you those solutions. And maybe there are a lot of innovations which come right from inside itself, right? And you're able to work on them. Brilliant point.
Ajit, I just want to add to that. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, please go ahead.
So what happens is when the product is super matured, sometimes the architecture itself is very complex, right? And I'm not talking about A/B testing, right? It becomes very difficult to have an idea and execute it. One of the things which we have done is created a separate team. We called as the innovation lab. We actually create a lab, and all they have to do is whatever wild idea anyone has, they have to use all the low-code platforms. Web first, no app, because I don't want to release it, wait for 7 days, blah, blah, blah. So it's about just web first strategy to test your idea. Does it really work? You kind of go back to the founder mindset, right? So once you are successful, the idea is successful, then it comes to the main production app where it kind of works, and the product market fit, we think it works. So that is one quick way to test the ideas with low-code tools. It doesn't cost much. You don't need a lot of engineers as well, right? So templatization actually.
True. Yeah, I agree. Very quickly going on to you, Praz. And we talked about customer insights. And what I understand, let's say, were there any specific improvements which led to, let's say, improvements in your product or strategies that you developed, which are core focused on customer insight that you derived?
I'll answer this with a story of Moladin. So I'm extremely amazed, I think, with the report of the speakers here, because I went through a first-hand experience of what it takes to achieve product market fit, to achieve hypergrowth, and it's extremely, extremely difficult. Moladin was founded in 2017. So actually, just when I joined, we almost went bankrupt. We only had less than 50K in our bank. And the last product that we thought of was used cars. So we're an automotive platform. We tried every single thing except for used cars up until last year. We tried new cars, we tried motorcycles, we tried to build community, you name it. We tried it all except for used cars. So when it comes to customer insights, right, there are 3 main weapons in your arsenal. 1 is quantitative, 2 is qualitative, and 3 is from your own stakeholders and from your colleagues. And it's different on what weapon you need to equip depending on the stage of your product. So when we started out our used car business vertical last July, we had no data. Cannot use quantitative measures, right? We don't have amplitude to measure our data analytics and our user engagement. So we needed to resort on qualitative and stakeholder interviews. And qualitative is really an intricate skills to perfect when it comes to gathering customer insights. Because what most people, and I would say what most researchers fall into the trap, is they kept on asking the user, hey, what do you need? Right? Back in the 1800s, when you ask people who are on horses, you ask them what they need, they'll say, I need a faster horse. They wouldn't say, I need a car. And that's one of the fallacy when it comes to user interviews. And back to Aditya's comment, you need to fall in love with the problem. You need to know exactly what your users' pain points are, their needs are. So at that time, what we realized was we were the only platform, the first platform to make a dedicated app for agents, used car agents. And what we found out was that the biggest pain point that they're facing is when it comes to payment, receiving payments. Cars are usually 110, 120 million. And when buyers want to pay for their car, they would usually either split the payment or they use RTGS, right, where it would take a day to receive the payments. So we built an app to just simplify the payment process, meaning that 24/7, our agents are able to receive payments. And when we are buying the cars from Moladin, we're able to disburse the payment up to 999 million real time, 24/7. So that was how we utilize customer insights. Now comes to the fun part, right? We launch our product in September, October. We start receiving data. What's next? Now we go into the quantitative measures. We use analytic tools like amplitude, right? To really find out what is the aha moment. So what we found out, interestingly at that time, was that it's really hard to make agents download our app. No one knows about Moladin. We were only had like a few hundred users. But what we found out was interesting was that the aha moment of agents that use our app is when they receive payments instantly and they get notification from their WhatsApp from push notifications saying, hey, you receive your payment in real time. So we utilize that to acquire other agents. So imagine a case where I'm a Moladin agent and you are not a Moladin agent, right? But you are a used car agent. So we built this feature where I am able to say that I'm co-broking this transaction with you, and I'm able to input a commission field for you, even if you're not within Moladin app yet, ecosystem. But what we did was that once the transaction is successful, we'll disburse the commission to your wallet account in Moladin app. So we actually made a temporary account for you. And the only way for you to withdraw your instant commission is by downloading and registering to Moladin app. So that was one way how we then acquired users and really feed that flywheel loop of acquisition and retention. Then finally, one of the things that people, I would say, underutilize is your own stakeholders. Your stakeholders, surprisingly, would know a lot of stuff, right, when it comes to your user pain points. So every single week, we talk to our agent sales officers, we talk to our ops people on the field, on the warehouse, to really get insights. For example, what we learned recently was when people come to our warehouse, they not necessarily have thought of trading in their old used cars. But what we realize is that when our own agent sales officer offer for trade-ins, it becomes a hook point for the customers. So that's one of the features that we're currently building right now, is thinking about how we want to incorporate seamless trade-in when people want to sell their car and upgrade their current used car.
Brilliant. And what I gather from there is the product does not stop at the customer interface. You've got to get insights of their entire customer journey, whatever they're doing after they've used your app. What is their daily process like? Are there opportunities to kind of improve on that? And love the piece that you called out around Henry Ford's quote, that if I had asked my customers, they would only told me to build a faster horse. They would have never told me to build a car. And last quote, which I love in this parlay is, this was the CEO talking about that I don't want to be the best, that's over optimization. What I want to be is better than the second. And I'm sorted. So I would love to have this conversation continue, and I would love to continue this. But if there are any final thoughts, I would love to take that. Anything from anyone? Or we good?
I think I'll just probably add one point on, how do you sustain having continuous, hyper growth? And I'll add this point because, it sounds draconian, but it is super important. And that's about, structuring yourself well. That means having the right org structure to have that sustained growth. A lot of times when companies, they are, in that hyper growth phase, people tend to get confused. Hey, what I'm supposed to do? The job responsibilities are overlapping. People are not clear, and that's where you see companies kind of, their growth is stalling. And that's where I've seen having a very clear structure where you have a team of people with high agency who know what they are supposed to do. Their responsibilities are not overlapping, and they have a very clear charter and goal. That's key to continue, growing fast.
I couldn't agree more. What we're talking about is hyper growth, and how do we continue in that zone by itself, where you continue to kind of be in that zone of hyper growth. Thank you.